Okay, there are two types of comma rules where I see the most errors happening in this class's student work when I looked at those diagnostic essays. So the two rules that I'm going to go over today are the FANBOYS rule and the introductory clauses rule. Okay, so let's start with the FANBOYS rule. I call it the FANBOYS rule because you need to know the conjunctions. You need to have them memorized. So it is an acronym and it stands for, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. Okay, so see how it spells FANBOYS all the way down? All 7 of these words are coordinating conjunctions. All 7 of these words are coordinating conjunctions. So the FANBOYS rule is that anytime you have 2 complete sentences connected by a coordinating conjunction, FANBOYS, you put a comma before the conjunction. All right, so anytime you have 2 complete sentences and they're connected by the words for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so, you have to put a comma before that conjunction, otherwise you have a run-on sentence. So for example, if you were to have the sentence, I could not go to the store and my mother could not go either. Okay, you have 2 complete sentences here. I could not go to the store, right? I could not go to the store is a complete sentence. My mother could not go either is a complete sentence. So that means that you have to put a comma before that coordinating conjunction. And that rule applies anytime you use any of these words to connect 2 complete sentences. Now, where students screw this up a little bit is if you would have a sentence such as, the test was due on Wednesday, but not on Thursday. You would not put a comma before the but here because the test was due on Wednesday is a complete sentence, but not on Thursday is not a complete sentence. So in this case, you do not have a comma. Now, another way that students they're not using this FANBOYS rule, but they may have a comma splice or they have a comma error, is because they take 2 complete sentences and they connect them with a comma. And I did notice quite a bit of this in your writing. So for example, to have 2 complete sentences, the essay is due on Saturday. I am starting to type mine today. Okay, so you have 2 complete sentences and they're connected by a comma. This is a complete no-no. You cannot connect 2 complete sentences with a comma. So there's a few ways that you could fix this. You could eliminate the comma and put a period. You could add a coordinating conjunction. See, this helps vary your sentence structure. We talked about varying sentence structure. So you could add in a connecting word and make it a compound sentence. Or something else that you could do is you could put in a semicolon. A semicolon connects 2 complete sentences. So that's another way that you could fix this, but you can never, ever, ever connect whole sentences with a comma. That is a complete no-no. All right, so that is one way to help to fix your comma splices. Another good rule of thumb with these FANBOYS is to not use more than one of these to connect sentences. So in other words, you should not have 3 complete sentences connected by conjunctions. It's overwhelming for the listener, and really what you should do is you should be varying your sentence structure, right? And you should have a compound sentence where you have 2 complete sentences connected by a conjunction, and then a simple sentence. So for example, a writer might do this. The essay is due on Saturday, and I'm starting to type mine today, but my roommate started hers last week. Okay, so now we have a problem because we have 3 complete sentences and 2 connecting conjunctions. We have comma and we have comma but. And so we're using that FANBOYS rule, but we have too many sentences that we're connecting, and really that's just confusing for the reader. So in order to vary your sentence structure, what you would want to do is you would want to decide which one of these sentences are you going to disconnect from the others. So for example, I might eliminate this and just put a period here and capitalize the M. My roommate started hers last week. Now notice I have a compound sentence with using that FANBOY rule, and I also have that simple sentence that follows, so I'm varying my sentence structure. Okay, so that is really all that I wanted to tell you about the FANBOYS rule. So now I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the introductory clauses rule. Okay, anytime that you have an introductory clause, meaning that you actually have part of your sentence is occurring before the subject, you need to set that introductory clause off with a comma. For example, if I were to say, when I study for a test, I always make sure I have plenty of time. Now, this is a nice sentence, right? Because we're varying our sentence structure because we have this introductory phrase right here. Well, whenever you have an introductory phrase, you have to set it off by a comma. And a way to know if you're doing that correctly is that you can almost always take that introductory phrase and you can move it to the end of the sentence and it's still going to make sense. So I always make sure I have plenty of time when I study for a test. Do you see how that makes sense? Well, if that clause or that phrase occurs at the end of a sentence, you don't need a comma. But if I take this and I move it to the beginning to say, again, when I study for a test, I always make sure I have plenty of time. Remember that then I need to make sure that I do have that comma, because that's what's setting it off. And this is really going to help you with varying your sentence structure. If you start to use these introductory phrases, that is really what kind of changes the tone of a sentence. So when I study for a test, I always make sure I have plenty of time. Another example of using an introductory clause would be to say, although writing essays are difficult for some students, I have always found them to be easy. Okay, I have always found, let's make that more clear, writing essays to be simple. Okay, so here we have this long introductory phrase, right? Although writing essays are difficult for some students. We could move it. That's how we know we need a comma after it. Another way we know where we need the comma is we find the subject of the sentence. So who is doing something? I am. Here, who is doing something? I am. That's our subject. We cannot have something before the subject without having that comma there. Also, notice how I could take this whole introductory phrase and I could move it. I have always found writing essays to be simple, although writing essays are difficult for some students. Do you see how I could move that all to the end? Remember that that's another indicator you have an introductory clause. Another reason you'd need a comma at the beginning of the sentence, right, is if you're talking to someone. For example, Diane, please go to the store. We know that I'm talking to Diane, but this is actually going outside of that introductory clause rule that I wanted to speak to you about. And so those are 2 rules that you should really pay attention to in this class, and I think it'll make a big difference in your writing because I did see that several of you were making these mistakes. I hope that this is helpful. Thank you. Bye-bye.